Welcome back to Switch to Linux. It's another Wednesday live show. So on this segment, we're going to be talking about Microsoft buying GitHub and talk about a little comments. There's a few articles that I read about this. There's, of course, a lot of comments going on it. Some people are saying this is a great thing. Some people are saying the end of free software as we know it. And so I just want to go ahead and give my comments on this. Now, unlike, I think, a lot of comments, my comments are going to be fairly neutral. I'm a web developer. I'm a front-end guy. There's a few things I probably could put on a service like GitHub, but I don't. I don't bother. I don't care, mostly because I don't use a lot of other people's online services. Very few. There's some, obviously, YouTube. I use that. There's a few other small ones, but for the most part, I just don't use services like that. I have backups in my NAS folders, which are available to me wherever I'm at, which contains source codes and things that I need for the stuff that I do. But that's really the way I like to work things. And so I'm kind of going to give my comments from kind of somebody watching on the sidelines. I'm aware of the issue, but I'm looking at the sidelines. So let's go ahead and jump into kind of the meat of this over here. So, of course, this is Microsoft's blog post about it. Microsoft plus GitHub equals empowering developers. I think a lot of people have memed this. Microsoft plus GitHub equals, the end of free software as we know it. I don't know. But anyway, they've purchased GitHub. They're still finalizing things, but they've put in the official bid. The bid's been accepted. There's just a few of those little businessy things going on in the background, but they were purchased for $7.5 billion, I think, or is it 7.5 million? 7.5 something. So they purchased GitHub, which, if you're unaware of GitHub, it is the place where you software developers will put the code up. You can lock it behind a wall privately for payment, or you can just use it as a free and open source platform so people can view it, commit it, download it, use it, distribute it, whatever else. So in that respect, it's a good platform for the distribution of content. And so, of course, Microsoft purchases this, and they say that we're going to see three clear opportunities. Microsoft says, first, we will empower developers at every stage of the development cycle, from ideation to collaboration to deployment to the cloud. Going forward, GitHub will remain an open platform which any developer can plug into and extend. Developers will continue to be able to use the programming languages, tools, operating systems of their choice for their products. And this will still be able to deploy their own code on any cloud or any device. Okay. Second, we will accelerate enterprise developers' use of GitHub with our direct sales and partner channels. So that's all I need is people like, hey, come get a GitHub account. No, Microsoft, put me on a do not contact list now. Thank you. With our direct sales and partner channels and access to Microsoft Global Cloud Infrastructure Services. And finally, we will bring Microsoft's developer tools and services to new audiences. Most importantly, we recognize the responsibility we take on with this agreement. We are committed to being stewards of the GitHub community, which retain its developer-first ethos, operate independently, and remain an open platform. We will always listen to developer feedback and invest in both fundamentals and new capacities. So that's what they say, trying to quell some of the concern that they're going to kind of destroy it down the road, and that's not too much of a concern, because if you remember the term embrace, extend, extinguish. This is actually something that showed up in their Microsoft's internal documents discovered by the United States Department of Justice while they were looking into alleged antitrust and other monopoly type things. So what this is that you embrace some subject or some service, some skill, something, and then you extend it by adding extra to it, and then you extinguish it by adding your own proprietary stuff, basically locking it out. This is what Microsoft really has done in I'll use the best example of your Office suite. There were, of course, other Office suites that came to the table, but Microsoft got involved in a lot of those and really extended it. And I hear to this day people say, well, LibreOffice just doesn't work as well. Incorrect, sir. It is Microsoft Office that is the broken one. Have you ever heard of the adage, if a million people say a stupid thing, it's still a stupid thing? Well, if a million people are using broken software, it's still a broken software. The thing is that Microsoft intentionally screws up open document formats that it should not. In fact, it doesn't really screw them up as much as it just displays scary warnings that's scaring most users away from that kind of stuff. And so that's one of those things that we have to keep in mind as we're considering this. So these are just concerns. Of course, Microsoft buys up a lot of things. They buy up Nokia, and it's dead now. They bought up LinkedIn. It's questionable if that was really, if that's been killed or whatever. It hasn't been moving anywhere. They bought up Skype. That's become a useless, worthless hunk of unicorn poo. And that's kind of what Microsoft does. Now, you can say that this embrace, extend, extinguish was certainly, I mean, this is a couple decades ago. This is something that may not be the case. And of course, we're seeing all these Microsoft heart-free software or open software, signs all around, mostly pushed by Microsoft. But the real reason, the real thing is that Microsoft sees the Linux community, it sees the open source community as serious competition. Particularly because they're moving, and most people are moving towards models where they want people to pay regular licensing. So instead of buying Microsoft Office once in 2007 like I did, and there haven't been improvements to Microsoft Office enough for me to look at it and go, I would really like to buy a new version of Office now. There aren't improvements. So they kind of want us to pay that subscription fee for that Office 365 because it is a perpetual subscription fee. Adobe, Autodesk, completely went with those models. And I do not think Microsoft's going to be too far behind. I think that once they get a certain threshold over that, they're going to cancel the old model, and now you will only be able to get the Office as a subscription service. That is my personal belief that we're going to see down the road. So it's not an unfounded complaint about this, because this is actually part of Microsoft's past ethos. And of course, people say, well, they're different now. They've changed. And look, they just bought something new and it's not completely dead yet. Well, that reminds me of this video. Remember this video? Ajit Pai releases this shortly after the vote to say, oh, you can still do all these things. Yes, you incompetent moron. That's because your rules are not in effect yet. This idiot should be kicked off the... I don't know what to do with this moron. But to sit here and say, oh, they're buying stuff up. Guys, it takes a long period of time. Microsoft plans 5 years out, but we as a society are planned to think 1 day, 1 week, or at most 1 month out. We are not trained or encouraged to think in the big picture. Very few people think in the big picture. And that's what Ajit Pai was feeding on. Ooh, the rules have passed, the internet's going to collapse today. And he comes on the very next day, oh, you can still do all of these things. Yes, you moron, because your rules have not gone into effect yet. Now, they are into effect now. Again, we're not going to see changes immediately on this. It's coming, though. And that is where people's concern is with Microsoft, is that they are potentially going to do something. Now, I think if they're really going to keep the case, what they're going to see happen at the very least is GitHub accounts will be merged in with the Microsoft account thing. So, of course, you can sync up everything else you do with your GitHub account. And even for me, I never, ever, ever recommend you use one email address for everything. But that's exactly what the companies wanted you to do. They want you to have one email address for your Microsoft account and then use the same email address for everything across the field, and it locks you into their services. That's a bad thing, okay? So, of course, what really made me want to do the video on this is a couple days ago I read this Ars Technica article. Everyone complaining about Microsoft buying GitHub needs to offer a better solution. And this, to me, like, there's times these articles come out in some of these platforms, and this is one of them, that are so pro-Microsoft that it makes me just want to take these guys and slap them silly. It so demonstrates the bias. Because you know what? Everyone complaining about Microsoft buying GitHub are raising very good points and giving very good solutions. Here's the solution. If you need a service like this, ditch GitHub, go to GitLab. That's a good solution. Because there are a lot of people in this world, myself including, that want nothing to do with Microsoft. Microsoft, we don't want to do with you. I don't want you to be, I don't want to be a person that's folded into your portfolio. That's exactly why they bought LinkedIn. They bought LinkedIn to consolidate their data. By buying LinkedIn, they were able to grab, I think it's 433 million users. Remember that Microsoft shifted their business plan from a software company to a data service company. They're seeking to collect data. That's what they're trying to do. Now, how much data could be acquired from GitHub? Probably not a lot. There's things that they bought LinkedIn for a different reason than they bought GitHub. But the fact that they bought GitHub and they want to get their fingers all over it causes a lot of people to be concerned because they have a 20, 30 plus year track record of ruining things. That's the concern that people are having. So when I see articles like this saying everyone complaining about Microsoft buying GitHub needs to offer better solution. GitHub needed a buyer and there aren't too many options. I am not going to argue that. But just because they needed a buyer and Microsoft stepped up doesn't mean that I recommend people stay with GitHub. Not at all. Not in the slightest. I think you should jump ship because Microsoft is a poison that destroys everything it touches. Everything. And their models are becoming more anti-consumer as we come along. And that is a huge concern. That's why people are saying this. And when I get these articles, of course, Peter Bright's very pro-Microsoft as it is, reading through his articles. So, there's developer backlash, though notionally a for-profit company has become an essential, integral part of the open source community. GitHub offers free hosting. So, and of course, this whole article goes through all of this. We're going to read all this. But he makes the case that, yes, it needed bought. And we're not in any disagreements with this at all. Okay, if not Microsoft, then who? Google probably would have been the best to buy it. Honestly, because Google is not hostile to open source. Microsoft may not be right now, but they have a long track record of being hostile to open source. Okay, it's not too and to reality, they are a big for-profit company that only sees dollar signs. Every human, every person, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. We are just their cash cow that they are going to milk for what they can. That is what people's very, very legitimate concerns are. And so they talk about the three suitors, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. As I said, Google probably would have been the best because they're not as anti-open software and anti-consumer as Microsoft is. They are anti-consumer in many ways, but they're not, they release a lot of open source stuff. They're not hostile to open source, whereas Microsoft traditionally and classically has been, and that raises some questions. And so he makes this whole argument about best fit. He noticed what he never covered. He never went into better solutions. Here's a good solution. Get off GitHub, go to GitLab. That's the solution. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. I hope you've enjoyed this video from Switched to Linux. If you'd like to help support the channel, check out the links at the top. There is another video over here. You can check out our Patreon page down here. And you can check out shop.switchtolinux.com for information on a t-shirt like this or some other designs. Thanks for watching and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.